My house was built in 1904. It is a single-family home with wood frame setting on a concrete block foundation. I've been living here for about 12 years. Of all the weird things that my siblings and I have seen or heard in this house, this event is my favorite. This happened to my brother. About 10 years ago, my brother and his best friends had started a garage band playing mostly Spanish rock, alternative music but in Spanish. His friends could only get together on Sunday afternoons. They would practice into the early evening, and they would usually call it quits by 8 p.m. This was the time I usually showed up and went to bed, because I worked the graveyard shift. This happened in late fall, so the days were getting shorter. They had just finished a long session when the decision to head to someone else's house came about. My brother handed his car keys to his buddy so they could load up the equipment. Everyone had filed out of the basement, but the tricky part was that they needed to walk to the back of the basement, up the back stairs, through the kitchen doorway, down the hall into the living room, and out onto the front porch. Everyone was outside, sitting in my brother's truck waiting for him. My brother was walking up the back stairs when he remembered that he had left his pancakes in a to-go container sitting on a speaker in the basement. He decided to go back. Now, the basement is not clean. With full sight lines, there had been partitions made, and the boiler and the main heating unit are right smack in the middle. So after my brother walks back, he is out. He is about to retrieve his food container when out of the corner of his eyes he sees it. It is a shadowy figure right in his peripheral vision. The feeling of dread and uneasiness washed over my brother. We had been taught that if you are in the presence of a spirit or ghost and you felt a bad vibe, to say a quick prayer or cuss at it. My brother chose the latter. He just told it, "Hey, fuck you. I don't have time for this shit." My brother started to walk to the back of the basement, briskly up the stairs, closing the door and turning off lights as he was walking out. The last light switch is on the opposite side of the front door. Luckily, the door was open, and the light from the street lamp was flooding the living room with its amber light. My brother said he felt something at his back, but at no point did he turn around. As he flicked the last switch, the living room went dark, as did the rest of the house. As he stepped out, he pulled on the door, closing it behind him, still holding his food in his container in one hand. He jogged down the few porch steps. He walked towards the front gate. Our house resides far from the main street, essentially having a large front yard, but no rear garage. As he closed the gap between himself and his friends waiting in the truck, he kind of smiled and thought things over in his head, mad at himself for spooking out when there was no reason. He climbed into the driver's side of the truck, putting on his seat belt and getting ready to pull out of the parking spot directly in front of the house, when one of his friends asked, "Hey, wait, what about your brother? Isn't he coming with us?" And my brother answered him, "What do you mean? He went to work early tonight. He is already gone. Do you see his car anywhere?" The next question they asked, "So then who was walking behind you when you were leaving the house?" I want to start off by saying that I am atheist, and I don't really believe in ghosts, but to this point, I can't find any plausible, logical explanation to this story along with a few others. I was around 8 at the time, but still remember it quite vividly, and my grandfather was a very big part of my life since I lived next door to him. Out of all of his grandkids, my sister and I were probably the ones closest to my grandparents, and there was a connection between our backyard and their backyard, so I could easily cross over to their house when I wanted to. My grandfather was a big man. He was tall, robust. He had a very prominent mustache, which he took very good care of, and never shaved it. So my whole life, I had never seen him without it. Even in old photos from his 20s, he was already rocking the mustache. Even though he was 80, he was quite healthy. He owned a store, which he had been running for more than 40 years, and was still doing it by the time he was hospitalized. He was sent to the hospital because of some heart issue, which wasn't supposed to be serious. I am not entirely sure what the problem was, But since it wasn't serious, my parents didn't take me to visit him because he was supposed to be back home within 2 weeks. For the surgery, they needed to shave his mustache, and due to complications, he did lose a lot of weight. On the day he passed, I had a dream about him. In the dream, he was skinnier and didn't have his mustache, which I had never seen him without. He was wearing normal clothes though. I woke up suddenly in the middle of the night. On the other side of my bed, I had a desk which had a little digital clock which showed 4:42. I didn't think much of it and went back to sleep. The next morning, my parents broke the news to me, and I was shattered. I was inconsolable for a few days. When I was less sad, I asked them questions any 8-year-old would ask. Why did he die? Why couldn't they save him? What time did he die? They answered the questions, but the one that really hit me was when they said his death certificate said that his time of death was 4:45. I told them I woke up at around that time, but they dismissed it and said it was a coincidence. After a few more days, I found out my sister also had a dream. One of my cousins said she saw him standing on her door the night he passed away, without his mustache, and my other cousin said she felt his presence. This story still bugs me to this day because my logical brain can't think of any logical explanation for it. So, this happened 5 minutes ago while walking my dog. I live in the suburbs, but there's like patches of forest and trees where it's super dark and no streetlights. Anyway, we passed it, no problem, but on our way back, I heard some animal screaming in pain like it was being attacked. It sounded like a small dog or a bat. As we got closer to the tree line, but still walking on the sidewalk, I saw 2 white triangles just crisscross each other and hid behind the trees. It looked like it was human in the moment I saw them, but looking back, they moved way too fast. My dog saw them too because at that moment, he was looking where I saw them, and he just stared. But I got creeped out and got chills, so I went the longer way home. That's actually my first time experiencing something paranormal, and I am 25 years old. This is one of the few and very rare, unexplained paranormal experiences I've had. I want to preface this by saying that my younger sister, 15, is more sensitive to spirits and frequently sees shadow figures and strange lights in our house. Others have also seen things while I only seen a strange light once, and I've heard strange noises probably 5 times. I am a believer in the paranormal, but I also try to find reasonable explanations to strange things that happen before claiming it's ghost. But this one was just strange and aligns with other experiences. Now onto the story. A few months ago, I had a dream that some would consider a nightmare. In my dream, I was in bed and I had woken up in the middle of the night. I tried to go back to sleep, but when I tried to move, I realized I couldn't, so I thought I had sleep paralysis, but I was completely fine. In my dream, I was trying to call my sister, but I could barely talk. Finally, I was able to turn my head to the side towards the door. There was a chair next to my bed and a tall black figure of a guy was sitting there. He might have been wearing a hat. When he saw me turn, he looked at me, and instead of eyes, he had small glowing green orbs, super bright, almost neon green. I woke up right as he looked at me. Funny tidbit, when I woke up, there was a pillow next to me that I confused for a person, and it scared the hell out of me for a second. I brushed it off as a weird dream and went back to sleep. This is when the story gets weird. In the morning, I was telling my sister about the weird dream I had because I rarely remember my dreams, and I don't get nightmares. And that was the closest thing to a nightmare I've had since I was like 8. I'm 26 now. As I was beginning to explain the eyes of the shadow man, she cuts me off and starts describing them exactly how they looked. She then explains that she went to the bathroom in the middle of the night and she says she saw a small, maybe 1.5 foot elf-like figure with the same glowing green eyes. We were both super weirded out by now and we went to tell my brother. This is when it gets even weirder. He was super nonchalant about it, and when we finished, he was like, "Oh yeah, I've seen it." He explained that it was during a sleep paralysis episode where a small elf-like shadow with the same glowing green eyes was banging on our heater. I remember him telling us his sleep paralysis episode a few years ago when it happened, but I never thought it was anything paranormal, just a weird dream. At the time, he hadn't mentioned the glowing green eyes. The whole thing was extremely weird and I can't really explain it. Sorry if anything is not clear or structure is weird. Not the best at writing events out. It was around 2005. I was sleeping on the couch and woke up in the middle of the night to my family room being illuminated by a floating ball of light. As my eyes adjusted, I noticed this ball of light had a face. It had what I would describe as cartoon eyes and a cartoon mouth. When I realized what I was seeing, it grinned at me with cartoon-looking fangs. I felt no fear, just confusion. But I understand that I should leave the room and go upstairs. It never moved, but its eyes followed me across the room. I went upstairs and laid in bed for about 20 minutes in anger and confusion, then decided to go back downstairs just to see. And of course, it was still there. And it grinned at me again. I pretty much forgot about it the next day until around 10 p.m. I was sitting on the couch watching TV when it materialized in front of me, in exactly the same location as the previous night. This time, I had an intense emotional reaction to it and turned off the TV and ran up to my bed. I was not in the mood to deal with it again. I never saw it again after the second encounter. So today we meet up with our neighbors near the neighborhood's so-called ghost house. My mom and her friend went into it for a hot minute, but were too scared to go into it further. So my best friend and me went inside because we are really interested in paranormal stuff and have a lot of stories about weird happenings all around the neighborhood. As a side info, I am from Austria. We're a small neighborhood on a mountain with a lot of forest. You can't even see your neighbor's house from your house. That's how far everyone is spread out. So we went inside and checked all the rooms. They have a lot of dolls and old Bibles, Christian paintings and statues, etc. All in one very old, weird feeling. I think my favorite part was the old Casperel Theater in the attic. A Casperel Theater is a small theater for hand puppets. In Austria, often used for the Casperel. Check my next post for the pictures. My bed moves on its own at night. That's pretty much it. No explanation as to why, but night for night, my bed will be in a different position when I wake up. I've tried to move the bed myself while laying down, simulating as if I was asleep, and I even purposely trying to move it intentionally while on the bed, and it's literally impossible. My bed will move generally 1/4 of an inch from the wall a day, and one time it moved 3 inches from the wall vertically and about 4 inches horizontally. Now, I've mentally dug into this a few times, and it could be aliens, paranormal, or maybe something else. But I'm hoping anybody could provide me with any personal experience or information. I have a picture of when my bed moved a ton one night. DM me, because this thread doesn't allow pictures. I lived in a house that was haunted by many spirits. I had a medium tell me that sometimes up to 20. It was located right next to a cemetery. I can see and hear spirits. I have seen a Confederate soldier in my bedroom. He turned, looked at me, smiled, and vanished. Everyone that has lived in that house and my family have had experiences. A few that I have had was my back rubbed, doorknobs being turned by themselves, my foot had been grabbed. You could be home alone and be downstairs and hear footsteps upstairs. Stuff would go missing, just to show up on the counter 6 months later. Several family members have seen black shadows. We got along, they didn't bother us, we didn't bother them. They just let us know that they were there. I have been touched and heard my name called several times, and so has other family members. Since my parents have died, they both have been seen on security cameras, as well as things being moved with no one there. I get asked all the time, didn't this bother you? No. As I said, they didn't bother us, and we didn't bother them. No one ever tried to hurt us. My husband moved in as a skeptic and moved out as a believer. Everyone else would be sleeping, yet he would hear footsteps going up and down the hall. After so many years, it was normal life for me.